Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Bring out the talent.
Welcome to Bring Out the Talent, a podcast featuring learning and development experts discussing innovative approaches and industry insights. Tune in to hear our talent help develop yours. Now here are your hosts, TTA's CEO and President, Maria Melfa, and Talent Manager, Jocelyn Allen.
Welcome, everyone. This is Maria.
Hey, Maria, it's Jocelyn. We're happy to have you all back with us again.
We're so excited to have our guest today talking about a very important subject. So let's begin. A recent report revealed that the estimated cost of an unhappy worker in the United States is between 450 and 500 billion per year. Wow. That is an alarming amount of lost revenue for organizations. Many leaders are struggling to build happy and high-performing teams amidst the numerous changes in the workplace. With employee happiness and improved workplace culture on the forefront of most business leaders' minds, many are asking, how can we help cultivate happy and thriving teams within our organization? Well, in today's episode, we will talk just about that. So, welcome, Leigh Ann Rodgers. Leigh Ann is a IAF Certified Professional Facilitator with over 20 years of experience in the human development field. She is a highly skilled coach, trainer, and meeting facilitator working throughout North America, Canada, Europe, and Asia with numerous Fortune Global 500 companies to help leaders cultivate cultures that are both highly productive and positive. Welcome, Leigh Ann.
Thank you, Maria and Jocelyn. I'm excited to be here with you to talk about happy teams.
It is one of the best subjects that we could ever talk about, I think, because everything else in a workplace stems from your happy teams and how you're making them feel valued and using their skills to the best of their ability. I want to talk a little bit about like some of the kind of stats or facts that you gave to us to kind of lead into this conversation, including Indeed had a happiness survey, right, of over 5.5 million employees, and it revealed some interesting insight into the current status of like what workplace happiness is. The survey revealed that happiness is a cause of success. Happier people are more productive, creative, earn higher incomes, and are less likely to burn out or be absent from work. In your opinion, what is the best way to measure your team's happiness?
That's a great question. And you think about happiness, how do you measure happiness? It's so subjective, isn't it? And it is difficult to measure, and it is possible to measure as well. And I think what you have to first start with is, what are the indicators? Like, what are you looking for to see if a team is happy? And the three indicators that I'm always looking for are connected. Is the team connected to the leader, to each other, to the work? Are they engaged in the work? Are they excited by what they do? Are they playing into their strengths? And are they fulfilled by the work? Do they feel like what they're doing matters and is contributing into the world? And that is such a big need right now. Everybody really wants to feel very, very fulfilled. So you've got to start with that. Then you got to figure out, how do we measure it, right? And so I think there's lots of different ways you can measure it, from observing for those things, from asking questions to your team to see what they say, or to actually doing a team assessment and getting some scores that you can have some metrics to compare and contrast to later.
Do you find that there are some organizations, or when you're going into an organization and kind of looking at how they might be looking at happiness overall, are there some places that are completely off on what the three things they should be looking at are? Like some aren't looking at connectedness, engagement, or feeling fulfilled whatsoever, and they're on a completely different track. Like, what does that look like?
Well, all organizations are different. And I think for a lot of people, the word happiness, it just resonates instantly, and they realize it, even if they're not focused on it. Some organizations are more focused on the bottom line and the number and the goals, and others recognize we can do that. But if we're meeting our goals and our teams aren't happy, what we're seeing now across, the world really is this exodus of people saying, hey, I'm going to go look to work somewhere else. This isn't fulfilling me. And so I think more and more organizations are recognizing and stepping up and saying, hey, we've got to engage our teams. We've got to make sure our people feel happy and fulfilled in their work. It's a different way. It's a whole different way of looking at it. And more people are demanding and looking for ways to get their teams onboarded and working well together.
The most important thing is having a happy culture, because as we mentioned, without that, people just feel burnt out. They don't feel connected to their employees. There's just a lot of mistrust. So it really is something that leaders absolutely have to pay high attention to. I know for us, this is our 4th year in a row of being a Boston Best Places to Work. As a matter of fact, we were supposed to go to the event tonight, but we couldn't because we all had to be vaccinated. Not all of us are vaccinated here, but that's really great because a lot of that is not a lot of it, it's all from anonymous employee feedback. So I know to me, we've won multiple awards, and that's always my favorite award to get because it is, again, from the feedback of employees. And I know we certainly try hard here to have a very happy and productive environment. And I think it really stems from finding the right team members too. So obviously it stems from the top, so to me, I like to have fun. And I think, having fun is also part of being happy, right? You can't take yourself too seriously, but it also just makes the responsibility of finding the right team members just so important too, because, you have one negative person that can make a happy culture become a very unhappy culture. And we've all had those examples. So I know it's kind of off the topic, but very much related to the topic.
Right. Yeah, I can tell it resonates with you. And just the interactions I've had with you all, you have a lot of fun together, right? You enjoy working together. You feel connected and bonded. And I'm guessing, Maria, because of that too, people at TTA are willing to give more, put more energy and effort into what they do, love working together, go the extra mile. All of that comes from that sense of enjoying what you do.
Absolutely. The teamwork has never been greater than what we have over the last several years. And I've made just a lot of conscious impact on having the right team members, because again, having the right team members and people working so well together and respecting each other and just kind of having the same values, it makes such productive, great teams and brings the connectedness and brings the happy environment. And my team works so hard, so that's why even with all COVID right now too, as we know, the Great Resignation, a lot of people wanting to leave, most people do want to work remotely. It made me really kind of, think about it, because we were able to get, a lot of us were in the office several days a week before COVID happened. And now we pretty much have a flexible schedule where people could work as many days as they want in the office. We obviously have people that live outside the state and, they're working fully remotely, but, it's just, if you give people what they want and you trust them, that again creates a whole part of the culture where people just feel happy. I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's all interrelated.
Yeah, it's all interrelated.
There's a lot of elements of teaming, and happiness is one of them, and trust is another one, and they interrelate, right?
Yes.
If there's no trust, people aren't going to be happy either. And so happiness isn't always, we've got ping pong tables and we have a good time. Yes. Happiness can also be, we worked so hard today and feel so excited about what we produced together and how fulfilling and exciting it is to make some impact on the world. So there's happiness all the way from just having joy and fun and being able to laugh, all the way to doing really meaningful work that, lights you up in a way nothing else does.
Very true. I like what you said in the beginning about engagement being part of that, because I think that if I'm thinking about different perspectives, a lot of times maybe somebody who isn't engaged in something that's occurring can be seen as somebody who's just a disengaged employee. They aren't a fit. They're not contributing the way that they want to go. But if you look at it a little deeper, maybe there is something going on with their happiness and the reason why they don't want to contribute to something. Yeah. I think that you're really good at noticing that, Maria, because like you've called out before when I think maybe certain people aren't as involved in things and how we can get them ramped up to like feel better about being involved in certain things. And I've seen growth even in some of like our most recent employees by saying, okay, like I see what we're talking about here. Let me one off and dive a little bit deeper. And then you teach them one thing that they weren't certain about. And then all of a sudden they're recharged and you're like, oh, okay, I guess she was right.
Yes. And that's a sense of connection to me. That really ties in with a sense of, do I feel connected? Am I being included? Whether I'm new or I have a different point of view, all of that really does fit in.
So you've created a specific model and method that's proven to build happy and high performing teams. It's called the Better Teams Model. What a perfect fit, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about it and how you came up with it?
Absolutely. Thanks for asking. So I've been working with teams my entire career in one way or another. And I find what happens is a team says, hey, can you come help us? And whether it's an offsite retreat and they just want to do an annual event and things are going really, really well with the team, or if it's a team that's really struggling and they want you to come in and help them with the team, you have to think, okay, where do we start? There's so many different ways and directions to go with how to help a team and figure out what to do to help them be both happy and high performing. Because I think they're both important, right? We want a happy team and we also want a team who's performing really well, and one without the other, and you're missing something. And so I started looking for models, and there are some good models out there. I just couldn't find one that had all the elements. To me, I'd like this part of this model and another part of another. And over my years of working with teams, I just began creating and patching together what I thought was my own. And then about 5 years ago, I thought, I have something here. And I started putting it together and really shaping it and really getting clear on the words that I wanted to use. And I built this and tested it and tried this out until I got it just where I love it today. Interestingly, if anyone looks at it, it's a set of 5 triangles nested together. But originally, I should say, I have this somewhere, it was a Venn diagram. It looked totally different. And I found a really cool graphic designer and I sent her my Venn diagram and she came up with the nested triangles, which was perfect. I think it really just kind of ties it all together. So that's how it came around, just through experience and a need and trial and error and lots of feedback along the way.
I think it's great that you said like you realized you had something, you know what I mean? That you invested yourself in finding something that was going to work to lead towards this result that you were after. And it's through vetting it through different, kind of scenarios that are in front of you and then developing it beyond so that it works for all. I think that's great. I love that little hustle in you, Leigh Ann.
Oh, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun passion. It's been a fun passion project to work on and put it to life and now see other people use it and tell me that, it's helping them or they're able to see within their team, okay, now that they have this model, they're able to identify where is my team really strong? Or if I'm a facilitator working with the team, where is that team really doing well? So they can celebrate that and focus and continue that. And then it also helps them to kind of tune into what are the areas where we have opportunity to grow. And it gives a framework and it gives language that just makes it easier than this big broad thing of my team needs help and I'm not sure what to do.
So you mentioned your model includes 5 key areas. Can you talk about those?
Yes, there are 5 core areas of it. This leadership, being aligned with the team. And by the way, let me go back for a second. When I talk about leadership, it's not about the leader of the team. It's about a leadership mindset and skill set that everyone on the team can have. We can all demonstrate leadership skills and mindsets. Then there's alignment around the who, what, and the how that we work together. There's the need to be ready, equipped, and competent and adaptive. And then the happy, obviously, we've been talking about that one. It's one of my favorite components, making sure people are happy. And then if you were to look at the model, you'd see the large triangle that encompasses the entire thing is around trust, because obviously trust is the backbone of a really strong, happy, high-performing team. And I believe all the other things in the middle cultivate trust. So when we're aligned, we cultivate trust. When we are all communicating, leading well within ourselves, we cultivate trust. When we're happy and connected, we cultivate trust. When we're ready and we have what we need and we're adapting, we can cultivate trust. So trust is the big one around the outside.
It certainly is. Without trust, you really cannot have cohesive, strong teams. How do you help teams establish trust if they don't have it?
Oh, what a great question. Well, and it really depends. Don't you love when people tell you it depends? People love that answer. I know, but it really does. Like, why don't they have trust, right? Is it a brand new team and they just don't know each other yet? Or is it a team that's been around for a while and has a lot of historical challenges and conflicts or strife that they've got to like overcome and rebuild trust? So it would depend on things like that. But when I think about trust, there's a few different things that I would think that might be useful here to your listeners out there. And so figuring out, if trust is missing or not as strong as you want it to be, what do you think is the core reason? I think we've got to figure out that and get to the root of the cause, because that helps us figure out what to do. And ultimately, to me, how do you know if trust exists on a team? There's three things you're looking for. And so is the team candid with each other? Are they going to have open, honest conversations? Am I going to be able to say, Maria, I have a different point of view on that? Or Jocelyn, I don't think that we should go in this direction. Am I going to feel safe to have these conversations? And another thing you can look at for trust is, are we willing to be vulnerable with each other? Appropriately vulnerable at work. If you love Brene Brown's work, you'll love this concept, right? But I can say, I don't know the answer to that. Let me find out. Or I'm really overwhelmed right now. I need some help. Or I'm not sure what to do. What do you think we should do? Feeling safe and comfortable to be vulnerable is a sign that there's trust. And then the last area of trust that I always look at is interdependence. Do we count on each other? Do we lean into each other? Because it's so easy just to silo and do our own thing. But if I trust you and I'm interdependent and I collaborate with you, it means I have to put trust into what you say and listen and work with you back and forth and work through challenges sometimes because we may want to do it differently. But I know in the end, we'll get to a better place. So those are the kind of things I'm looking for with trust or a team. And then figuring out what they're missing can then help you figure out what to do next. And so can I just give you an example here? Let's say, for example, they're not very vulnerable or candid with each other because it's a very new team. If it's a very new team or a team that's been working remotely for a while and they're just all about the work, they don't really know each other really well. Going back to happiness, they're not very connected to each other. We could do some things to help that team get there quicker, like really get to know who each other are in their core. Because once we know that and we can have empathy for other people, it's really a quicker way to understand and just break the ice. And so one of the examples of doing that, and I've seen this done with an executive leadership team that really had low trust. They were a relatively new team. There was just a lot of issues going on with this team. And one of the first things we did was when we get together, everyone bring with you an object that's something that really represents something that's valued, that you value, that represents something that you value and is really meaningful to you. Anything. It can be a picture, an object, it can be metaphorical, just bring something. And they all brought the most interesting things and ended up sharing pieces of themselves and things that were important to them that gave you insight into who they were and what mattered to them. And a whole new level emerged after that activity where people were like, wow, I didn't know that about you. And now I know you as a person outside of work in a slightly different way. So that's one example of a simple thing you could do just to begin letting people know who they are beyond just, a work person fulfilling a role.
I love that idea. I think we're going to use that here.
That really describing it. It was touching me, because I was thinking about what people could possibly bring based on things I could possibly bring. It's my heart kind of fluttered a little bit thinking about what that would do for camaraderie.
Yes, I was thinking.
Can I share with you the most interesting one that I've ever seen? Because there's so many that stand out in my mind of what people brought. But one time a man brought this little tiny beanie baby stuffed animal. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he said, I have this thing with my kids because I travel a lot for work. And so one time on a trip early on, his kids had packed one of their little beanie how do you say that? Beanie bag babies. You know what I'm talking about? The little animals.
Mm-hmm.
I had packed it in the suitcase so daddy could take it with him. And so he took it and put wherever he was working that time, he put that I can't say that, beanie bag baby. He put it somewhere and took a picture and sent it to them. And then it became a thing. And so every time he goes on the trip, he takes it with him and he takes a picture with this little stuffed animal and sends it to the kids. And it creates a sense of fun and connection with his kids, even when he was away. And it was just such an interesting, like it really kind of gave an insight to him of his kids and how it was important to him and something that he was doing.
Right. And especially if he's a guy traveling all over the place, why he has this like raggedy stuffed frog with him at all times. Right. And the journey that it's literally taken with him.
I love that. Like I could see too, I think like with our team, knowing our team well, I think a lot of people would probably bring pictures of their children, which I love. And that's great. Right. But it's almost like if we ever did that, like they couldn't bring a picture of their children.
Right. Like,
because we all know that. Yeah. Surprise us.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's amazing though, how simple something like that and taking the time to listen to each other, it shifted that group. They were a little bit vulnerable as much as they chose to be. And by the way, in one particular group I can think of, they got very vulnerable very fast with what they shared. And it changed the whole mood in the room so that when we got into the deeper conversation about the team and what the team needed to do, they were more relaxed and energized and open to that, because now you aren't just my teammate who I don't know very well. Now I know a little bit more about you and vice versa.
So what happens if you have a team that the leadership, people that the team does not trust? So how do you change something like that? Because it's almost like if you cannot change these leaders, then it's almost like the employees are better off leaving. I hate to say that, but because how can you work in an organization if the leaders are not willing to have self-reflection and build the trust?
Yeah, that's a great question, Maria. So I would think, like, how do I know that? Like if I were going in as a facilitator to help them, how would I be aware that there was lack of trust? And then I would go back and ask, is the leader aware that there's a lack of trust? Like maybe if they're coming to you saying my team does that actually would be very encouraging, right? Because then they're like showing an openness to want to change that. If human resources calls me and says, hey, we have a team and there's nobody that trusts this leader, it would be really important to me to have a conversation with that leader about, what do you think is happening on the team and how do you think the team feels about you? And do you believe the team trusts you? And kind of feel them out to see how open they were. Because you're right. If they're not open to hear feedback and to make some adjustments, it's going to be really difficult to help the team without the leader on board first. So in that particular case, it might involve some coaching one-on-one with that leader ahead of time, to prime them, to get them ready, to get them shifting in their behaviors, perhaps even to do a 360 leadership assessment. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, everyone, their team, their peers, their manager, and themselves all rate themselves on leadership skills. That can be super powerful to get a lot of information and kind of reveal some blind spots you have about yourself. And many people see that, and it can trigger the desire to make some changes, to be open to coaching.
That would absolutely be a great thing to do 360, because you can't lie about what all your team feels about you as a leader.
Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes teams that are really struggling, if the leader's not strong, doesn't have a strong skill set or belief, about themselves and the growth mindset that I believe leaders need to be successful, they will actually resist any kind of team assessment or self-assessment or even any deep work. And my belief is it's their fear that it's going to expose them as a bad leader. And so what I find though is leaders who are open to that and willing to say, hey, no leader's perfect. No team is perfect. We all have areas of opportunity for improvement. And being open to that and having those conversations, those are the leaders that, do really well. Sometimes people are afraid of feedback.
Very interesting. So this is kind of similar, but different. It seems like I'm going there a lot today, but when I'm thinking about kind of exposing the weaknesses, a few weeks ago, we had the whole marketing team in for the whole week to do some strategy planning. And we've done the Clifton Strength Finder workshops a couple times, and it's really interesting. I think I would love for us to use it more. So we started off the meeting by putting everybody's top 5 strengths in the marketing team. And I actually put everybody's bottom 5. And normally we don't want to focus on the bottom 5, but we looked at it from a way of how can we help support those bottom 5 strengths / weaknesses. And it was interesting looking at it from that perspective, because we realized, okay, we have one person on the team that her lowest was like input. And it's funny because marketing, we're all very much, collaborating like every team member, but especially like marketing. So it made us realize, okay, it's not that this person doesn't like, feedback or asking people for help. It's just maybe she's just not comfortable. So like, how can we help her work? And that, like, for example, my lowest 34 is discipline. And my number 1, which is funny, is achievement. So I feel like I'm always like kind of wrestling within myself on, I want to do well, but I'm not.
But I don't want to do it. But I don't want to do it.
No, I do. But it's funny because I've always been late ever since I've been like a little girl. Like my mother used to be like dressing me. I was walking out of the house, go running, for the bus. I'm like kind of like late here. And it's funny because like I'm naturally like I'm dehydrated my whole life. And every day I'm like, I'm going to drink more water today. And I know everybody says that, but I will like go a whole day with drinking like 2 ounces of fluid. But it's kind of interesting. So, I mean, not to go off on that, but it kind of like it exposes it, but not as much as the 360. So it's kind of interesting in the team dynamics to kind of show that. And I know at first people are like, oh, I don't want to show my bottom 5, but it was like a healthy dialogue when you realize, okay, there's 34 strengths, these are your top 5. I mean, we're all can't be like great at every single one of them. So I could see, with a 360, doing that. I know we haven't done 360.
Yeah, it's
here
really
and all,
different than strengths.
Yes.
For me, it's a very
I'm
different
sure.
type of assessment, and
Yes.
the way it's delivered, and it's just a very different experience
Yes.
altogether than strengths.
Yes.
I love assessments in general, though. I think when used as a tool to better understand ourselves or have conversations, like to me, I see an assessment not as, here it is, black and white, you're this, you're that, like not to label people, but to use it as a tool for conversation to better understand each other is so interesting. I think, and people tend to like to take certain assessments more than others, I think. Mm-hmm. And 360 isn't always when people are excited to take either. And yet, oh my gosh, I've seen some really people just totally change the way they lead because they were open. They were open to hear the feedback and be coached and practice some new ways of being. Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
So you've said a lot about our strengths, as we just kind of brought up, and you have kind of said, and I'll paraphrase it, but we can pinpoint our strengths, and by pinpointing them, leaders can effortlessly align effective action plans. Can we dive into strengths and telling us about your Better Teams assessment? How similar is it to the Strengths Finder that we know and love, right? And what is it creating for the teams who take it?
So the Better Teams assessment, which is connected to the model, is completely different than the Strengths Finder. So Strengths Finder is about your individual strengths as a human. And I know you can look at it collectively as a team and all of that, but it's really focused on the individual. The Better Teams assessment is a team assessment where everyone's assessing the team system collectively and how people work together. And so you end up with data around how the team perceives the team against those 5 areas and those 15 characteristics that we highlighted earlier. And then what happens is, if the assessment doesn't say, it'll give you like, here's where you scored the highest and here's where you scored the lowest, but it gives you a lot of data. And the value of it isn't the assessment itself, it's the conversation that comes through it. It's the process of let's go through it and have conversations around where do we see ourselves as a collective? What are our strengths as a team? And really taking some time to celebrate that. Because often with an assessment, we all do it. I'm so guilty of this. If I get an assessment of myself, if you go straight to the bad, right? We go straight to the bad marks. And what did people say? What are the low scores? So we hover for a bit in the strengths, celebrating what they are, identifying them, coming up with the specific examples. And then you switch and you start to go through at the assessment, closely and say, where do we see as our greatest opportunities? And it may or may not be where they scored the lowest. I mean, they may have scored lower in an area, but that doesn't matter as much to them as something else. So it's less about the score and more about the conversation. And so then the team begins to look at and decide on it, ultimately through a process of, being facilitated through some processes. They narrow down to the top 1, 2, or 3 opportunities that they'd like to work on. And they're usually bigger than just a check the box kind of thing. Like, we want to have stronger meetings. We want to communicate more. We need to get clear about our roles and responsibilities. There's a lot of confusion on that. It could be anything like that. It could be another common one is we need to get better at giving each other direct feedback. We're really bad about giving each other feedback. I go to Jocelyn to talk about Maria. Maria goes to you to talk about me. We're triangulating. So whatever it is, the team is empowered to decide, here's our strengths and here's our opportunities. And here are the opportunities that we want to work on. And it's really neat because then they've decided what it is. The consultant or facilitator coming in isn't telling them, their leader isn't telling them, they're building this together. And now they begin to develop action plans against, to support that, to meet that long-term plans that they can work on all year to build this happy, high-performing team. And then should they want to, 6 months, 12 months later, they can reassess. And now they have some numbers and some metrics against things that can be very subjective and difficult to measure. And they can see, how are we doing? Are we making progress in this? And is there anything else we want to be aware of or work on now? So it's a really powerful tool to get a conversation going about things that are sometimes hard to define or discuss. But when you have them in a written form, it gives you kind of the platform from which to start the conversations.
Is the assessment done together as a team or individually?
It's done individually, Maria.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an online, it takes 15 minutes. Everyone gets a link and they all answer the same questions. There's 30 questions and they're all from, I strongly disagree to I strongly agree. And then if they disagree at all, there's actually a place on each question where they can even write like why they disagree, which I love because how sometimes you get the numbers and you're like, wow, some people strongly disagreed on this and other people strongly agreed. And you go, why? Well, I love that there's actually a place where they can actually put their information right in the assessment and you have some like written information to give you some context to why they did that. And then there's 5 open-ended questions at the end. And all that, once they're all done, it's all compiled into a single team report that the team debriefs.
Love that. So originally when you were talking about it, I was looking at particular like department teams, but TTA being a relatively small company, is this something that we could take like company wide for our company team?
I get asked that a lot. So it really is designed to be a true working team that takes it. Typically, when I say, people go, what does that mean? And I'll say, you have a leader, a common leader, and it may or may not be your manager, but a common leader and a common goal that you're working on pretty regularly, actively need each other to do it. And the reason is a lot of the questions wouldn't make sense. So sometimes people say, oh, I have a team, and I'll say how many people, and they'll say 56. And they'll go, well, that is collectively a team, but it's really a team maybe with 6 smaller teams in it, if that makes sense. And if all 50 people took this, the team A and team B may have very different experiences in their workplace. And so the information is going to get jumbled and not be very useful. In that case, what I would recommend is the senior team or the executive team or the leadership team, whatever it is, takes it, because they're their own unique team. And then each of those leaders or managers who has a team, they also take an assessment. That way you'll get the best data. It's not designed to be an organizational assessment. It really is for a true working team. So does that give you information? Like your team's probably too big for that, I'm guessing, right?
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
The executive
but I really,
executive
and the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Oh, yeah, I really like this.
Mm-hmm. Now, a piece of what you said earlier that I love, that I know Maria loves too, because we talk about mindset all the time, is the fact that you said leadership doesn't have to do with title, that it is about mindset and the way that you think about how you perform day to day. So is there a way to encourage that mindset? Does that come within the model as well? Or is that like a prerequisite to understanding that like leadership has to be your mindset?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. To me, it's a mindset and a skill set. And I think so often when people first see it, I always emphasize that, because you see leadership and you go, oh, it's a team assessment. Of course, you're assessing the leader, and the leader is a part of that system. But in this case, we really want everyone to feel like each person on the team influences how that team goes. You can influence from any level that you're at. And so to me, it's about having an ownership mentality of, I care so much about this team. It doesn't matter what role I play in the team. I'm going to act as if, I owned this business, or I owned this team, or I was the leader of this team. And so what I find is when people are personally invested in the work that they're doing, they are more likely to, all the things we talked about earlier, right? It's about, they're going to give more, show up more, stay longer, be happier. And so how do you get people personally invested to have that leadership sense of ownership? And I think it goes back to the engagement and fulfillment. Do they feel like what they're doing, do they see the tie between what they're doing and the impact that it's having on typically people, but maybe not, maybe on the environment, or maybe on animals, or maybe on other things. But how is what they're doing really mattering, so that they feel that drive to do what they need to do, to hold people accountable, to communicate, to be proactive.
Love that. I know, Jocelyn, you had a good impact story yesterday.
Oh, I did. Yes. One of my I will absolutely show my bias. She is a delight to work with, and one of my favorite people on the planet, a TTA talent resource. And she stepped into a pretty difficult opportunity where she was assisting a client with a very tight turnaround of a topic training delivery. And the results of it were outstanding. The CEO of this institution wanted to reach out and call her personally for making such an impact that exceeded their expectation, especially with the short turnaround that she did. And she took the opportunity to forward that recognition to TTA, and literally, in all of her graciousness, was like, I cannot believe that this is happening to me. I thank TTA. I thank God for all the work that is coming my way, and the fact that you guys take such great care of me and put me in front of the right opportunities. I feel like I am TTA is a big warm hug, and I'm grateful for everything. And it was just one of those moments that was, I don't know, impactful for me, because she's turnkey and she's easy to work with, and it's nice to put her in front of so many people. But part of that you don't always get to see is how she's really feeling about the relationship that has been created, and her graciousness, and just saying I feel like I have a hug around me every time I talk to you guys, was it gives such gratification and validity to what we do here, that it's not just about providing an organization a solution. It's about the people that you work with being happy and creating their own fulfillment for what they're providing to those people too. So yeah, it was probably my favorite story and thank you note that I could have received.
And you're grinning from ear to ear.
It's the best. It's the best. I told her, I was like, you're amazing. You get what you put in, and it will not stop. It will not stop. So I hope you're ready.
I love that. Yeah. You'll float on that for days and weeks. And remember that when you're having a bad day, right? Just put it on your wall somewhere that she said this, so you can lean in. I love that. I think that's so important. And, a reminder as well of how important recognition is, rewards and recognition with our teams. In this case, sharing what works and what people are doing well, and not just rewarding results, but also effort. So I think all of those things are examples of leading and holding each other accountable, but also recognizing, rewarding people when they do it, builds trust and builds that sense of fulfillment as well. I love your story, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Well, I love yours too, Leigh Ann.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. We all like this stuff, right? I think we like people and teams. I think we have something in common.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Meaningful work. It is. It's meaningful work to work with teams and people, and the kind of work you do, right? We're really trying to impact lives and help people in different ways. And yeah, I think for most of us, our sense of fulfillment comes in some way, shape, or form from feeling like you're helpful and valuable and needed and contributing. So we can't and that's so big right now. I think for a while, people were saying 5 or 6 years ago, millennials really want that. Millennials really care about that. And now it's it's not just millennials.
They might be everybody, right?
They just brought it to the surface. And now we're like, hey, I want some of that fulfillment stuff. I want a little bit of that. Right?
As we wrap up What last advice would you give to our listeners who want to improve on workplace happiness?
Oh, that's a great question. So I would say really explore with your teams. What do they want? What do they want and need? And listen very deeply, and then experiment and practice and try. How do you build more connection and meaningful connection with each other? How do you engage people and play into their strengths and let them try things that get them excited about work? And then how do you ensure that people feel fulfilled and recognize what they're doing really matters, both at the micro and the macro level? And so I would just encourage people to think of those three characteristics of that area, and really do some investigation and practice it.
Wonderful. This has been absolutely fantastic. One of my favorite podcasts. Don't tell our other guests.
Hey, I feel so happy now.
Exactly, right? Mission accomplished. Well, I'm about to make it a little bit more happier in here, because we are at the point in our podcast where we do the TTA 10.
Woo! Why do I feel
it's
so
the
nervous?
TTA 10 final questions for our guest.
No need to feel nervous, Leigh Ann. It's all in good fun. Trust me, you're not going to do terribly. The math question is it only has a little bit of multiplication and, division in it. So you'll be fine.
Let me get my calculator out real quick, Jocelyn.
No cheating. So as I discussed with you earlier, very briefly, these are fun, playful questions that we're going to ask. And the goal is to do it in 90 seconds or less, in which case we will celebrate you. And if not, we will not celebrate you. But both of the endings will be fun. So are you ready, Leigh Ann?
I'm ready.
All right, David, give me the clock, please.
All right, Jocelyn, 90 seconds on the TTA 10 clock, starting now.
All right, Leigh Ann, what is your favorite thing to do to unwind at the end of the day?
I volunteer at a farm and go play with the horses and the donkeys. It's an animal sanctuary. Yeah.
Amazing. What is your favorite ice cream topping?
Oh, topping? Probably Oreos, crunched up Oreos.
What is 13 plus 6?
19. That's a
Name any yellow vegetable.
Squash.
What is your go-to karaoke song?
I heard it from the grapevine.
If you could learn a brand new skill today, what would it be?
I'm trying to learn to play chess right now, and it's really hard.
Pancakes or waffles?
Ooh, that's tough. Pancakes.
Pizza or tacos?
Also difficult, but pizza.
If you could live anywhere in the world, where would you choose?
I would choose where I live. I live on St. Simon's Island, and I love it here.
Which zoo animal would you most like to have as a pet?
As a pet? An elephant. I love elephants.
Love it. They will fit in any household. All right, David, that is the end of the question list. Let's get a time, please.
Let's have a drum roll, shall we? Leigh Ann has completed the TTA 10 with a time of 1 minute and 19 seconds, well under the threshold of 90 seconds. And so, let us celebrate with the tune of Marvin Gaye behind us, Leigh Ann's favorite song.
Will not be singing.
Oh, that was part of it. No, it wasn't. Leigh Ann, we are delighted to tell you, you are the pride of Atlanta, and sweet Georgia Brown, you are a TTA 10 champion. You may shout this news up and down Peachtree Street. That's hard to say. Peachtree Street. Amaze your friends and include it on your resume. Now that you have achieved this coveted honor, you will be respected and loved by captains of industry, heads of state, and fellow Georgians Ted Turner, Julia Roberts, Ryan Seacrest, and Jeff Foxworthy. The southern sun will shine brighter for you, fried chicken and sweet tea will taste better, and life will have new meaning. Leigh Ann, you are a TTA 10 champion!
I mean, is that worth it, or is that worth it, Leigh Ann? Right?
I'm kind of impressed. He did that pretty quickly, too.
It's why we keep him around, really, so... If you're interested in connecting with Leigh Ann and bringing the Better Teams model and assessment into your organization, visit us at thetrainingassociates.com. We'll see you later.